Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgment, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone, and it's new Spotlight Day. We've got a new card. We've got Man Thing, along with Lady Deathstrike and Silver Samurai. Should you be opening this week? Are these cards worth it? Do we like Man Thing? Do we like it with tokens? Do we like with Spotlight Caches? That's what we're going to be answering for you today in this video. If you're interested in this type of video or want two brand new decks that'll keep you ahead of the meta every single weekday, please subscribe to this channel. Every day we give you at least two new decks before they hit the larger meta that are proven, can get you infinite, can get your infinity borders, climb into high infinite. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on these videos. Plus, you help us out, totally free to you, helps us grow. What you got to lose? Our card is Man Thing. It is releasing on 10/10. It is not a 10 out of 10 card. It is Series 4, which means 3,000 tokens, and it is an ongoing 4/5. 1, 2, and 3 cost cards here have -2 power. The first thing to note before you move on is that that's going to affect your cards and the opposing cards. That has lots of implications for the card. It's going to be really good once Annihilus and Nihilus, however you want to pronounce it, comes out, where the cards that you put there can then be thrown into your opponent's lane. For now, though, it usually means unless you have Luke, you don't want your cheaper cards in that lane. Um, it also means that, like, because this is an ongoing, there might be some extra ongoing synergies there as well. 4/5 is a decent stat line. It's the stat line of a card they like but usually don't love. The cards they really love and want to push, they make a 4/6 usually. Think Iron Lad. Sometimes a 4/5 can mean really good, but usually a 4/5 means playable but not incredible. Think Stegron for 4/5 ability, right? Like it's just generally a good card, not something stellar. They tell us a lot about cards, I think, by the way they stat them. If you are interested in buying Man Thing because of its variants, well, these are the variants that we have to look at, or at least the first bunch. It looks like Adia is still all the Spotlight Cashers. That's obviously releasing the day. Shaman Man Thing is fantastic. At some point in this video, by the way, I'm going to call him Swamp Thing. Oops, Swamp Thing is a better character. I'm really sorry. We have something called Super Logs, a super rare one coming out tomorrow that is obviously Venomized. If you like Venomized, that looks completely freaking unbelievably cool. I tend not to run Venomized variants, so meh. We have Bruner's 12/12, one coming out 12/12. This is one of the ones I will be looking at. I really love these comic covers. They also spoiled that they're going to do a Thanos one, the one from the cover of Infinity Gauntlet, where he's like with the light coming out of him with the gauntlet in front of his face. I bought that immediately when it comes out. But like, hey, this Man Thing is pretty cool. We don't know its rarity yet, but it looks very cool. We've also got this Diodato one that we don't know. I really like Mike Diodato art. This is no exception. Not sure how I feel about the hair grass thing, but obviously the Man Thing variant I'm targeting is the one with the unreleased date, the hip. It's adorable. Let's go. We also have Spotlight variants for Lady Deathstrike and Silver Samurai. We'll get more into them later. We'll do a full review of both cards. This is just for those of you who buy based on art, fundamentally, this little section. Um, one of our friends, Hey Koto, is getting the Silver Samurai because of all the cherry blossoms. The little Wolverine is kind of adorable. This is one of the better of this style of art. I think it's really pretty. And this is probably immediately the best Lady Strike. It looks super cool. I love the perspective on this one. But these are our spotlight caches of the week. We'll talk about the cards as we go forward. Synergies. Junk cards like goblins and debris really like this. If you can put your cards there and then make them have more negative power, that's good. Negative power inflict cards like the Evo cards and Hazmat obviously like more ways to have negative power on opponents. The counter card and the card you should likely run in your decks with Man Thing is Luke Cage. And if you're worried about opponent Luke Cage, and now we're looking at a card like Rogue, um, because you don't want Enchantress. Enchantress will turn off your own card as well, right? You could also conceivably try Echo, but then you're gonna need Echo to be in the same lane as Luke, and that's a whole thing. Um, the best bonus is Evolved Evolutionary. I'm an idiot. Evolved Abomination is what I was going for there. Evolved Abomination can, if you drop this in a place with 2 or 3 cards, be a 2-cost card immediately. They won't have time to get Luke Cage before you drop that Abomination something else. That would have been completely busted were Wave still a relevant card for this kind of thing, but Mobius is in so many decks. I just want it noted, there was a major tournament yesterday, over 200 players, and about 45% of the field had Mobius. Almost as many as ran America Chavez, and America Chavez is completely busted. So, like, you should be running Mobius, but you should also be worried about High Evolutionary, right? About High Evolutionary Abomination, because Mobius is everywhere. Um, Last question: Mobius is everywhere. If we could run Zabu, I'd really like this card, but I don't think we can right now. Playing this on 3 as your opponent is dropping cards in a clear location, dropping this on an opposing brood, for example, is just, it's really, really strong. Like, really strong. I think that might be its single best use. Um, we're going to feature some decks with a few of these synergies. If you want more, in the description of this video is the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. I personally hang out in the podcast chat with the host section. I'm all over the Discord, but that's the easiest place to find me. I will personally build you a deck with this card if you. All right. The first deck is Man Thing Evolved. This one is trying to basically take advantage of being able to pop out that Man Thing early and use the inflict strategies to get a cheap Abomination. If you can get Abomination to 1 using basically Hazmat Wasp Cyclops Man Thing, you can then get, like, ideally Abomination and then the other of Man Thing or Thing out that next turn, which just seems like it's really good. And God forbid if it costs 0, you're just through the roof in power, and then you can just drop a giant Hulk and win. Look, there's a lot of power to this play line, right? Like, you can get away with a lot here. Zabu lets you do something like go Luke Cage into, sorry, Sunspot, or into Zabu, into Man Thing, into Thing, which should win you some games of Snap pretty damn well. And then you can drop a cheap Abomination with your Luke Cage and go to town, or like a cheap Abomination with your Rogue. And then you can go Hulk and just win. Or at that point, you can drop a cheap Abomination on Cyclops, and if it's cheap enough, you're still getting the Cyclops. Seems good. Seems like it'll win games from opponents who aren't aware or aren't prepared. This is our second version. This is trying to Shang-Chi anything that goes over the top. We're using Scorpion instead of Hazmat here. We got a little Venomized theme because we've got the Venomized Scorpion and the Spider-Woman that is Carnageized for this one. This should work relatively well. You'll note that I actually have this Cebu now, so I'm happy and throwing it into decks where I can. This deck has even more 4-cost cards. Eye Evolutionary is a bad card, right? But if you're playing it for a 3/4, it's at least reasonable stats. You'd obviously rather Man Thing, or even if there was a reason to, Shang-Chi or Cyclops at that point. But hey, another play. Zabu's also nice because then if you Cyclops, you can play Thing or Man Thing on 4, and Cyclops is still going to trigger. Everything else here is relatively self-explanatory. If you get enough of this off and then you can spider ruin something, your Abomination's going to cost 0, right? And if your Abomination costs 0, then you can play Abomination Hulk to end the game. And that's going to win almost every game Marvel Snap. Although, obviously, Aliotho is a concern. He doesn't care how much. Next up, we have Safety Hazards. This is from our friend Safety Blade, the genius deck builder of Marvel Snap. This is an alteration of an earlier deck of his that's built around basically Wong Hazmat. I added an extra package here where I can go Wong Hazmat, or if that's not going to work, I can go Wong Spectrum. Man Thing has synergy in both of those shells. In that it's an ongoing card, so it's going to get the Spectrum buff, or you can go crazy with the negatives between Hazmat and Man Thing. Either way should work. If anything is too big for this strategy, you've got Shang-Chi, and you've got Magic. We're seeing less and less Legion in the meta. We're seeing less and less Snowguard actually being played for its effect. So Magic should be relatively safe, or at least as safe as it gets, although Thanos is back again, so there goes that. But at that point, you can go something like Wong on 5 into like Hazmat and Absorb Man on 6 into Odin, or you can yeah, you can do the same thing where you can go Wong into Spectrum into Odin, or Wong into Spectrum into Absorb Man, and you just sort of like kick all sorts of butt that way, and you like spike the power of your Luke Cage, your Zabu, your armor, your Wong, your Man Thing, like, and your Typhoid Mary all through the roof. Typhoid Mary is really here, by the way, with Luke Cage on the board. This deck, I think, is a sleeper. It might end up being really good. If you can like avoid opposing Luke Cage enough, or if the Spectrum can spike your power enough. I'm waiting for that Spectrum buff. I think it's coming soon with that Marvel season coming up. This is a deck that we can't make yet. This is an Annie Hellas thing deck. I think that basically just like not stressing things, dropping Hood, dropping um uh, Green Goblin, the debris cards, and then whatever you want with Man Thing, whether that be a hazmat you already used or whatever, and then saying all that crap goes to the opponent's side of the board is going to be extremely strong. At that point, Alioth should win you the game. Dropping, sorry, the Sentry's Void too. But all of that should just win you games of Snap. I think that this deck is going to be great, except that everyone's going to be playing something similar, so it sort of defeats the purpose. If everyone's doing it, but whatever. Man Thing super duper fits here because it makes your Hazmat or Carnage or Viper negative enough power to like either go to the opponent's side and clog their board or just explode itself. And that seems like it's pretty darn good. Um, I think that this deck is what we're really waiting for. This is the home of Man Thing when we get there. Unless this ends up somehow being really, really great. And I think without Mobius in the meta, this might be really great. So it's a little sad that Mobius does exist. Final thoughts. How much Luke are you seeing? Quite a bit, right? Like not a ton, but like enough. You're not. It's not a lot. Are you running a lot of Evo? If you're running a lot of Evo, then maybe. But wait, how much Mobius are you seeing? Because if the answer is a lot, then this card gets way worse, right? So if you're seeing a ton of Mobius, maybe this isn't a good idea. So probably not. If you're gonna do it by with tokens, I don't think you really want to open spotlights unless these other cards are amazing. So let's get to the reviews for them. First, we have Lady Deathstrike, a Series 5 card, 6,000 tokens. On reveal, destroy each of the cards here with less power than this. I bought this on opening day. I have all these cards from opening day at this point. I'm a content creator, so I feel like I have to be able to give accurate reviews. So, like, spoiler, I'm going to buy Man Thing. I'm trying to give advice for people who aren't, like, endgame complete, right? If you're endgame complete and you buy everything, obviously you buy this. But if you're, like, dealing with limited resources, Lady Deathstrike's kind of bad. She's like she should have a home because like she'll kill a Luke Cage, she'll kill a Mobius, she'll kill a Elsa, right? But 5 is just too late for a lot of that stuff. You really, really want her to be a 4/4 for her to be good. She might be broken as a 4/4 because then you can do silly things with Absorber Man and Zabu. But like Mobius isn't the game. I think it's time to make her a 4 though. I honestly think it's time to make her a 4. So I went and played all these decks this weekend with Lady Deathstrike, trying to get a feel for where she was in the meta. Um, this is relatively successful. It really wants America Chavez, likely over Yeesh, gotta be over Bucky, I guess. I mean, look, it's over Lady Deathstrike, right? The answer is you run America over Lady Deathstrike for this deck, and then this deck is significantly better. But Lady Deathstrike is perfectly fine here for what she is. It's just you don't really want to spend turn 5 doing that because if your Deadpool has gone off, he's too big for Lady Deathstrike, and you'd really like to destroy that Deadpool. So whatever. This is a decent home, but it's a decent home largely in spite of Lady Deathstrike, not because of her. I thought this was going to be really fun, and it turns out that like you never want to play Deathstrike, so it's a really really good deck if you just ignore Lady Deathstrike. Here you can get her out on 4. That was my hope. Like you just use her on 4 and you kill their stuff, but the draw just wasn't coming together enough. I still have hope for this. It might have just been a bad run, but this was not a successful deck for me. Like you would think this would just rock the meta right now, right? But like wasn't happening. This I got 2 Infinity tickets and to game 4 of Infinite with this basic deck last season. It's still good, but like it's good sort of again, in spite of Lady Deathstrike, you're almost always happier playing Black Panther or Iron Lad or whatever late game than playing Lady Deathstrike and like taking up a chunkier board. But sometimes Deathstrike is a 5/6 here. And if Lady Deathstrike's a 5/6 or 5/7, then she's extremely powerful. The problem is then like your opponent just plays something to go over her the last turn and you sort of wasted that, right? Like, you need to go like Brood, Absorbment, and Lady Deathstrike a different lane to really have a chance to win with her. That's a lot of trouble. And again, I think this deck is largely just better without her. To Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is one of my favorite cards in the game, probably one of my 10 favorite cards. It's the kind of underrated card that I really enjoy. But remember what I said about 4/5s? They're meant to be really good, but not busted. 4/6s when they're telling you, like, right, flashy lights, play this card. This is a very good card, not a great one, even though it's one of my favorites. 4/5, 6,000 tokens. Each player discards the lowest power card from their hand. Really, really fun with stuff like Iron Man and then Ghost Rider and Get Back. Um, that can be hard to pull off bluntly. And it has anti synergy with a lot of other discard stuff where like Dracula and Mobius end up costing 0, and that's a problem. Outside of that, though, still a very good card and extraordinary fun. So if you're looking for something fun, this is one. This is the base discard list. You'll note again, there's anti-synergy here with Dracula and Morbius, which means that you're largely gonna end up wanting to use this for the Silver Samurai. Although sometimes you'll be lucky and get a Wolverine or Swarm out with it. If you add any of those, then it's a truly stellar card. It's taking a card out of your opponent's hand and basically doing nothing negative for you. Swarm is a currently dangerous card. Again, it's a 2/3 that makes two 2/3s with Mobius, so it's kind of like worse Sentinel in that case, because it has counter synergy with your late game Dracula. I decided for this deck, by the way, to throw my 3 babies. Also, note my cool new hip deck, and it makes me so happy it finally showed up. Um, I don't know. Like, this deck is good. It was better before Mobius. Mobius really screws up that Swarm. Next up, we have Hela. This is how you play the deck with Hela. This deck has an unbelievably high win rate. I'm not 1,000% sure how, but it does. It's sort of a targeted discard. It's not really trying to like discard everything. Sif is the only dangerous discard here, really, for you. But Death makes that a lot safer. So just be careful if Hela's in hand and you're playing Lockjaw. This deck has been really good. Like, people are winning with this deck. It's proven. It's good. Again, significantly better for Mobius. Swarm going into Lockjaw was amazing. Is less amazing now that we have the problem of Mobius. Silver Samurai here was meant to largely discard Swarm, sometimes Jubilee, but largely discard Swarm, and it can't do that now. Sag. All right. Conclusions. Huh. That's last week. Let's go back and pretend there's no conclusion slide. Instead, I will verbalize my conclusions. Don't open this week. Unless you're like absolutely flushed. If you're absolutely flushed, just open everything, right? Don't open this week. Samurai is super fun. You don't need them. Deathstrike is one of the worst cards in the game, bluntly. And while Man Thing may be good, he's 3,000 tokens. So if he is good, you can just spend those tokens later. Save your tokens for a better week. Get more important cards. Make good decisions, Marble Snap. Hit that sub button. Check out tomorrow for another Snap Take. We appreciate you.